Welcome back to The Explainer. Today, we're diving into the absolute critical foundations of AI auditing. When we talk about assessing artificial intelligence under the rigorous new ISO/ISO/42001 standard, I want you to imagine a giant scale of justice. Picture it in your head. On one side of the scale, you have pure, unbiased, objective evidence. On the other side, you've got the incredibly heavy weights of external pressures, internal company politics, and conflicts of interest. Today, we're unpacking exactly how an auditor manages to keep that scale perfectly balanced. Now, I'm going to put you in the hot seat for a second. Imagine you're the one tasked with verifying that a highly complex AI system is safe, fair, and secure. But there's a huge catch. You, or maybe your firm, actually have a financial stake in this system making it to market. What happens to your objectivity then? Well, the source material we're looking at today makes it crystal clear. A compromised audit has catastrophic potential. It can unjustly validate a flawed, biased, or totally insecure AI system, basically unleashing it into the real world with a rubber stamp of approval that it literally doesn't deserve. Okay, let's dive into this roadmap. First, we'll cover the foundation of trust. Second, avoiding conflicts of interest. Third, core ethical principles. And finally, documenting organizational integrity. Starting with Section 1, the foundation of trust, establishing a neutral mindset. So, the ISO/ISO 42001 standard draws a really hard line in the sand with its definition of impartiality. It means carrying out your duties completely free from bias, favoritism, or conflicts of interest, period. Your findings have to be based on evidence and evidence alone. Why is that so absolutely crucial? Well, because AI often operates as a bit of a black box, right? That makes independent auditing the only true line of defense we have to ensure these systems are actually transparent, accountable, and fair. If an auditor lacks impartiality, their skewed assessment might completely miss the mark. You could end up with a so-called compliant AI system that's secretly discriminating against users or leaking highly sensitive data. Let's move to and see how this builds in Section 2, avoiding conflicts of interest, protecting objectivity in the real world. It's kind of like a tug of war. On one hand, we have objective evidence. We're talking data logs, system architecture, the cold, hard facts. On the other hand, subjective bias and external pressure. Maybe it's a CEO breathing down your neck, the desire to protect a partner company, or even just personal financial interests. An auditor has to anchor themselves strictly to that objective side. As our source notes, even just the perception of a conflict of interest can completely destroy the credibility of an entire audit. A conflict of interest happens when financial or personal interests skew an auditor's judgment. Let's bring this to life. Imagine an auditor reviewing an AI system that's used for recruitment and hiring. If that specific auditor happens to have a financial relationship with the developers of that AI, they might be tempted to, overlook something critical. Like, what if the algorithm inadvertently favors certain demographic groups over others? They might just ignore those discriminatory biases to ensure the product passes the audit. And that is exactly what ISO/IEC 42001 is designed to prevent. So, the crucial point is, to prevent those kinds of nightmare scenarios, we need an unbreakable set of rules. That brings us to Section 3, core ethical principles, the auditor's rulebook. If you are conducting an ISO/ISC 40001 audit, there are 5 non-negotiable principles you have to follow: integrity, objectivity, confidentiality, professional competence, and due diligence. Let's look at how a couple of these actually play out in the field. And this brilliantly illustrates objectivity in action. The source material gives a fantastic example of a really common auditing headache: conflicting stories. Imagine you're auditing an organization, and the IT department claims, oh yeah, absolutely, we're following all access control policies. But then you go talk to the HR department, and they say, actually, scratch that. Employees' access rights are almost never reviewed. As an auditor, you can't just play favorites or take the word of the higher-ranking department. Objectivity demands that you resolve this by getting into the system logs and policy documentation to find the actual objective truth. Then we have integrity. And look, the tough reality here is that auditors sometimes uncover things people really don't want them to find. The source text gives a stark example. What if an auditor discovers that an organization has literally been falsifying their security logs to cover up a major data breach? Integrity means the auditor must report this severe noncompliance immediately. They have to resist any pressure from senior management to downplay the issue, sweep it under the rug, or change their findings, no matter what. We also absolutely have to talk about professional competence because AI isn't a static field, right? It's evolving at lightning speed, and an auditor's skills must evolve right alongside it. If an auditor is reviewing a complex machine learning model, but they don't understand the latest adversarial attack vectors or how to detect new forms of algorithmic bias, well, they're lacking professional competence. Missing a technical vulnerability simply because of outdated knowledge is a direct violation of due diligence. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is how we shift focus. Section 4, documenting organizational integrity, proving compliance. Because remember, the golden rule of auditing, if it isn't documented, it didn't happen. So we just talked a lot about the integrity of the auditor, but what about the integrity of the data itself? Integrity measures are the controls that protect data from unauthorized modification, corruption, and destruction. You have to prove organizational integrity through documentation to verify that the AI system's data is actually secure. Because think about it, if an AI is trained on corrupted or manipulated data, its outputs are going to be fundamentally flawed from day one. So how does an organization actually prove this to an auditor? It's basically a three-step mini-narrative. First, you implement access controls. You lock the front doors so only authorized people can get in. Second, you enforce data validation. When someone tries to enter data, you double-check it to make sure it's accurate and valid. And third, you maintain audit trails. You keep a meticulous, completely unalterable record of exactly who changed what and exactly when they did it. This is the concrete, verifiable evidence an auditor is actually digging for. Under access control, they don't just want to see a dusty old policy document. They want to see multi-factor authentication and role-based access actively working. For audit trails, they want to see the system logs, and those logs better have precise timestamps and specific user IDs attached to every single action. And for data protection, they're looking for real cryptographic techniques, like AES 256 encryption and hashing algorithms, to absolutely guarantee the data hasn't been tampered with. But here's the catch. Setting it up once just isn't enough. Continuous monitoring and automated alerts are totally essential. ISO/IOC 4200 is heavily focused on continuous improvement. An AI system is dynamic, so its security has to be dynamic too. Automated alerts act as the ongoing pulse of the system's integrity. They ensure that if someone tries to make an unauthorized modification, the security team is notified in real time, right then and there, not 6 months later during the next random audit. Which brings us to our final thought. Is your audit truly unbiased, or are you tipping the scale? We can have all the encryption, all the multi-factor authentication, and all the automated alerts in the world. But at the end of the day, the safety, fairness, and trustworthiness of our most advanced AI systems rely entirely on the unwavering ethics and integrity of the human beings auditing them. Thanks for joining me on this explainer, and keep that scale balanced.